Jalan berliku yang dialami Dewi dalam upaya mencari keberadaan orang tua kandungnya masih jauh panggang dari api.
Life is like a journey that must be faced. It's not about the destination, it's about how you get there. Of course, and that I hope that she's still alive and that I can tell her that I am healthy, that I have a good life here.
Dewi Dehlie lahir dengan nama Margi. Ia adalah salah satu dari ribuan anak yang menjadi korban praktek adopsi ilegal antara Indonesia dengan Belanda pada tahun 1980. Dewi masih bimbang tentang identitasnya. Nama dan tanggal lahir yang tertera dalam secarik salinan kertas tak menguatkan keyakinannya atas asal-usul siapa dirinya.
What I do know is that my parents have a folder with many files, so I can read about my adoption procedure, everything about my adoption is in that file. So in 2010, I went to Indonesia for 5 weeks, and then I also visited the orphanage where I come from. The orphanage, Loka Kasih, is from the foundation Kasih Bunda. But then the owner of the orphanage told me that he looked into my file and he told me the story about illegal adoptions in Indonesia in 1970 until 1983. And he said, yeah, he looked into my file and he said, probably your documents are falsified. So the information in my adoption file is not correct. So then I actually was in shock and I thought, I don't believe that. So then in the years after, I think I have been in Jakarta like 15 times to try to find her. Yeah, because it's very difficult when you have information which is not correct, then yeah, where do you have to look? Where do you have to search for information? So yeah, but I kept trying, but until now, no results. So, where do you live? In Jakarta?
I live in Kemang,
Okay.
in South Jakarta,
Okay. And for how long already?
since January
January this year.
this year.
Okay.
And
Yeah, you're ready.
Praktik pengasuhan anak melalui jalan pintas adopsi tanpa landasan hukum yang kuat melahirkan kompleksitas masalah. Ada yang menangguk untung, seraya di kemudian hari meninggalkan konflik batin yang dalam seperti yang dialami Dewi dan ribuan anak adopsi lainnya.
I don't have peace with the whole situation because I actually want to ask my biological mother if she gave me for adoption with her permission, because yeah, it could be that someone took me away from her, and I want to ask her, did you really want to give me up for adoption because you wanted to give me a better future, or perhaps someone took me away from you, and then perhaps he's still searching. So that's why I'm not satisfied with the situation. I mean, I have a very good relationship with my adoption family, and I'm happy in the Netherlands and with my friends and everyone. So I'm happy with myself and my life, but I'm not happy with not knowing if my biological mother gave me up with her permission, and if she really knew about that, she would never see me again. I have a cooperation with Foundation Mijn Roots in the Netherlands, and they also found out that a lot of mothers never wanted to give up their baby. So that's why I'm not happy with the situation.
Dewi telah berulang kali mendatangi panti asuhan di mana ia dititipkan sebelum diadopsi. Namun, pada tahun 2010 ia disuguhkan dengan pemandangan yang tak biasa selama ia mengunjungi panti asuhan. Batinnya kalut ketika melihat beberapa raga dengan tatapan yang kosong berdiam diri di sudut ruangan. Orang-orang tersebut adalah anak-anak yang tak diadopsi pada masanya lantaran memiliki kondisi yang istimewa.
And I went back to the orphanage in 2010 because when I was there were some adults. They were not adopted. So in that orphanage where I come from, there still lived some adults who were not adopted as a child because they had like mental disabilities. Then I asked, what do they do here? And then the owner, he said, nothing, because they cannot do anything. But I said, why they cannot do anything? I mean, because they're disabled, they have mental problems. So they only sat in a corner, doing nothing the whole day. And then I came home, and then I thought, I think that is very poor, and very unfortunate for these people who have like a disability, that they just don't do nothing the whole day. So I wanted to know how Indonesia is dealing with people with disabilities, and also with children with disabilities in particular.
Do you want to adopt a child?
No, I don't want to adopt a child because I want to focus on the children in Indonesia. I think it's important that they stay in their own country, live in their own culture. I want to focus on the orphanage.
Okay.
I think it's better for a child to grow up in his own environment.
Di Indonesia, pemahaman masyarakat tentang penyandang disabilitas masih terbilang rendah, sehingga mereka sulit keluar dari belenggu stigma. Mereka disembunyikan, hak untuk hidup yang lebih baik pun terabaikan.
Sebenarnya itu terima nggak terima, tapi karena udah kehendak Allah ya kita harus terima. Itu kan kita cobaan, kalau saya berpedoman Allah tuh mau coba manusia tidak melebihi manusianya, jadi kemampuannya asalnya. Ya itu sama ibunya harus bersabar berdua, apalagi udah pensiunnya ya gantian. Kalau ibunya ngaji ya bapaknya di rumah, ya itu harus ini kompak lah gitu. Karena kita punya anak yang ya punya kelebihan lah gitu. Jadi memang itu titipan Allah gitu loh. Jadi kita itu nggak boleh istilahnya kita jemu atau kita mengeluh apa, karena itu kan amanah. Jadi kita harus bagaimanapun ya itu amanah. Kita titipan itu akan mengangkat derajat orang tua. Walaupun kita istilahnya anak itu kasarnya tidak waras itu ya. Karena Allah itu dia udah dijamin sama Allah istilahnya, bukan orang gila itu masuk neraka atau ini istilahnya udah dijamin. Jadi mengangkat derajat orang tua justru itu, bukan kita malah putus asa. Nah orang tua itu justru malah lebih bangga harusnya begitu, karena punya anak yang Allah dipercayakan kepada kita gitu.
Berdasarkan data statistik yang dipublikasikan Kementerian Koordinator Bidang Pembangunan Manusia dan Kebudayaan Republik Indonesia, pada Juni 2022, jumlah anak dengan ragam keterbatasan fisik, sensorik, mental, dan intelektual pada usia 5-9 tahun adalah 2.197.833 jiwa. Dari jumlah penduduk pada usia tersebut yang berkisar 66,6 juta jiwa. Namun dari jumlah tersebut, anak-anak yang mengenyam pendidikan inklusif hanya 269.398 anak, atau sekitar 12,26%.
Ya sebenarnya itu kalau saya tuh pengennya tuh sekolah, kan saya udah mulai dari itu penitipan itu saya terakhir itu jadi Pak Yatno itu. Sebelumnya saya udah muter-muter, yang ke Depok itu mahal karena harus beli sopanya, terus ditanya itu makanannya apa, tiap hari apa. Nah itu harus sesuai di jumlah itu duitnya itu habisnya 100. Nah terus sopanya jadi 100 itu kali 30 berarti 3 juta. Berarti bayarnya buat makannya aja 3 juta, belum yang lain. Tuh embel-embel yang lain. Maka tuh waduh, saya tuh sakitnya tuh nyari-nyari lagi. Terus ada saudara yang bilang, oh di situ ada di Gunung Putri. Nah itu ada, masih telusuri saya sama ibunya tuh nyari-nyari. Nah adanya di sebelah sono, tapi itu sekolahan autis. Jadi bukan yang kayak Pak Yatno, tapi yang autis ada di sebelah sono. Nah itu sama yang gurunya sono ditunjukin ke Pak Yatno. Kalau Pak Yatno itu ya penampungan, istilahnya itu anak jalanan juga anak titipan. Jadi bukan anak autis aja.
Memiliki anak dengan kondisi istimewa memang tidaklah mudah. Apalagi anak dari Badrus didiagnosa mengalami gangguan spektrum autisme hiperaktif. Selain rentan dari berbagai cibiran masyarakat, biaya untuk menghidupi anak-anak tersebut terbilang tak sedikit.
Wah, umpama jutaan ada 100 lebih, Pak. Kalau itu umpama di ibarat rumah udah jadi. Kan saya kan masih kerja kan, saya ibunya itu istilahnya kan pengen anaknya sehat, pengen anaknya waras, kan nggak sayang-sayang kan punya duit gitu. Kalau saya itu dari orang lain saya itu nggak pernah sakit hati. Saya itu dari mulai dulu itu ya. Kalau orang mencemooh atau ngejek saya itu bukan malah balas ngejek. Saya terima kasih, barangkali itu kekurangan saya. Saya akan memperbaikinya.
Besok sekolah lagi ya nak? Mama pinter, iya sayang. Iya sayang, mama pinter. Iya sayang. Mama pinter.
Jadi tidak ada, saya sama istri tidak ada jemu-jemunya. Jadi usahanya ya orang pinter ke dokter, walaupun kita hasilnya tetap aja kita yaitu terima dengan apa yang diberikan oleh Allah. Jadi tidak, walaupun itu anak belum normal, saya tidak ada istilahnya bosen atau menyesal, enggak.
Thank you for welcoming us. We are from Foundation Creative Hearts in the Netherlands. We provide creative education because we believe that every child has the right to education.
Dia berdiri yayasan untuk kasih kelas gratis edukasi kreatif. Ya.
It's not good for the development of the child when they only like sitting in the corner or doing nothing. So we hope with creative education we can help to support the children with more learning several skills and perhaps a higher level.
Sejak kunjungannya ke panti asuhan 13 tahun lalu, Dewi memutuskan untuk membuat Yayasan Hati yang Kreatif. Sebuah yayasan yang fokus pada pendidikan anak-anak disabilitas di Indonesia. Ia dibantu 2 orang rekannya dari Belanda menjalani yayasan tersebut.
Then we have here.
Saat ini, selain merogoh kocek pribadinya, biaya untuk menghidupi yayasan itu berasal dari donatur yang mendanai pada setiap perjalanannya melakukan pendakian gunung di berbagai negara.
Yeah, I thought actually I wanted to do something for my country, my birth country. Well, I think my attention for Indonesian children because I'm adopted from Indonesia, so of course I have connection with the country. And as a child, I was given a chance for a better life. I don't need to save the whole world. I mean, even when it's small, then for me it's enough. Okay, so when I founded Stichting Creatief Hart, yes, I put my money in it because for me it's a very important goal. So for me it's okay to put effort and money in it. But it's not only my money. Now I also do fundraising for the foundation.
Perjalanan Dewi dalam membantu penyandang disabilitas di Indonesia mulai membuahkan hasil. Yayasan Hati yang Kreatif telah beroperasi dan berjejaring di berbagai kota di Indonesia.
So in 2013 I went to Indonesia and I had my first project in North Sulawesi. I also had a small project in Lombok. In 2018, we established a creative education center in the north of Bali. in this creative education center, there we have children with Down syndrome, autism, ADHD, and we provide creative education for these children because we see now in these 5 years already how they develop through creative education. And it's in combination with learning math, reading, because some children come to our creative education center and they cannot speak or read at all, but now 5 years later they can. And they have no school, they don't go to school because, it's difficult for these children to go to school because they have low level. We believe that every child has the right to education, and we also believe that every child, even when they have a disability like they're blind or deaf, or a child who is blind can make music, a child who is deaf can paint, so we don't think that when you have a disability that you cannot do anything. So also the parents of these children sometimes don't believe that their child is able to do something. When you see our videos, Facebook or Instagram page, then you see how the kids grow, they develop, their development. I hope we can grow further because it's very important for us that we can grow. And then you see these kids are very happy, they're smiling and they have the day of their life. I mean, it's very simple, but that's good to see.
Bye bye.